Paying attention to your client seems easy, but it's important that your body language says the same thing that your mouth is saying. You want to maintain eye contact, but not appear to be staring, and recognize that some clients may not be as comfortable with eye contact as you are. They may feel that it's disrespectful for them to give full eye contact. They may not trust you, or they may be shy. Be patient. Ask them about it after a second or third session if it seems important, but mainly be patient. Everybody is different. Also keep in mind that how you say things is as important as what you're saying. You can say, "Yes, dear," or "Yes, dear," and it has an entirely different meaning. It's important to watch what your body is doing as well. Don't move your hands too much. Sit still. Don't swing your legs or twiddle your fingers. Never chew gum during the session. I also make it a practice to offer my client a drink if I'm going to have a drink. Turn your phone off. Don't look at it during counseling sessions. If your client pulls out their phone, wait until they finish before you try to talk. Watch your facial expressions. If your client is telling you a sad story, even if they're smiling, you should not smile. Some people smile or laugh when they're nervous, but you want your facial expression to match the content of what they're saying, not necessarily their facial expression. Give your client enough space. If they're backing up, that means they need more space. But don't put tables or desks between you and your client if you can avoid it. I'm sure that you have all heard of open versus closed questions. Take a minute right now and write down a couple of open questions. These are some examples. Tell me about that. How would you describe your day? Tell me what depression means to you or looks like to you. Describe your relationship for me. Now write down a couple of closed questions. These are some examples. How old were you when that happened? How does it make you feel? Do you like your mom? Closed questions have yes or no or one-word answers. Ideally, you have a mix of open and closed questions during a clinical interview. During the first part of a clinical interview, after all the introductory remarks, you will ask a very open-ended question, like, "What brings you to see me today?" And hopefully the client will give you lots of information about what's on their mind. At this point in the session, you want to use lots of open questions and reflections to encourage the client to tell their story in their own way. Tell me more about that. Wow, what did you do then? What were you thinking about when that happened? Ah, I see. It seems like you were feeling upset. So you just walked away? Toward the end of the initial interview, you will notice that there are some blanks that you need to fill in order to understand the story. So you will need to ask some closed questions. How old were you when that happened? Where were you living then? Was that before or after the divorce, etc.? But be careful not to ask too many short questions in a row. Intersperse them with an ah, or wow, or I see, to encourage the client to say what they need to say. One of the important things to remember in an interview is that you don't know what you don't know. The client came to you with the story he or she needs to tell, but they may be afraid to tell it all to you at once, and they will get sidetracked from what is really important to them if you ask too many questions about what you think is important. Notice this when you're doing your interviews with your partners. Did their questions help you tell the story you came to tell? Or did your interviewer misunderstand and lead you down a different path than the one you intended to show them? Remember that a lot of times we may have a certain way of thinking about something that is entirely different from the way your client perceives or thinks about it. Ask the client to explain very concretely what they mean. I often have clients say they're antisocial. The DSM-5 definition of antisocial is very different from what most people mean when they say that. So be sure to ask, do they mean that they're introverted and they prefer to have some time alone and not be surrounded by people all the time? Or do they mean that they enjoy torturing children and small animals? Probably the former, but maybe not. If a person says they feel anxious, what does that mean to them? You have to ask. Do they mean that they're nervous, their heart is racing, their hands are sweating, they're worrying about what will happen? Or do they mean that they're excited? Sometimes people use the word anxious as in, I'm so anxious to go on my trip, I can't wait until we leave. Be sure that you don't assume what they mean. Ask the question. Some things are difficult for clients to talk about. Suicidal thoughts, child abuse, sex, etc. But we as clinicians need to ask. The important thing is not to start out the interview with those hard questions. In my assessment interviews, I almost always start with the easy stuff first. Where did you grow up? Who raised you? Who do you live with? How far did you get in school? What kind of work do you do? After we get through all that, then I'll ask about mental health. Have you ever been in a mental hospital? Have you ever tried to commit suicide? Then the substance abuse. What kinds of drugs have you tried? Then, at the very end, after we've built some trust and rapport, I'll ask the questions about abuse. Have you ever been physically, mentally, or sexually abused? In a typical clinical interview, you may not even get to these last questions during the first session. Don't push for information that the client isn't ready to share. It's okay to ask, but if they say they don't want to talk about it, you can say something like, that's fine, we'll have plenty of time later if you change your mind. Above all, be warm and accepting. Be sensitive and empathic with the client's thoughts and feelings. When a client senses that you care about them, they'll begin to trust you and share what they need to share so that you can begin working together. Let me talk for one more minute about transference. This is a psychoanalytic term, but it's important to be aware of this phenomenon in any kind of interview or therapy situation. Sometimes your client will respond to you as if you're some other person in their life. Maybe something you say or how you look will trigger something in them, and they will begin to respond to you as if you were their mother or their father, who they may have had a great or a terrible relationship with. The key is the intensity of their feelings. If they're very angry or seem to be falling in love with you, this is a red flag to alert you to a transference. A good clinician recognizes this transference of feelings and helps the client work through whatever it is. The opposite may also happen. Something about your client may remind you of your ex-husband or girlfriend who broke up with you, or some person you were in love with a long time ago, or your parent. Don't fall in that trap. Notice if your feelings toward the client are way too strong. Are you so angry with them that you can't quit thinking about how you'll tell them off the next time you see them? Do you wonder if they like you? If they think you're attractive? Are you thinking about them when you get dressed on their appointment day? These intense feelings should be a red flag to you that countertransference is occurring. Get some supervision. Call a colleague or supervisor and talk about what you're feeling so you won't damage the therapeutic relationship. Once you face and discuss these feelings, they'll usually vanish.